I learned, in the most silent and painful way possible, that there is nothing lonelier than begging for attention. You can be surrounded by people, you can be in a relationship, even hear an "I love you" every now and then, yet still feel an emptiness echoing deep inside, an emptiness that asks to be seen, heard, noticed. For a long time, I confused love with attention. I thought being loved meant being remembered, responded to, validated. And without realizing it, I began to lose myself in attempts to prove my worth. Every message I sent that went unanswered, every gesture waiting for a return, it was like I was shrinking a little more. Until one day, something inside me grew tired of chasing, tired of waiting to be chosen, tired of looking in the mirror and not recognizing myself. That's when I realized the problem wasn't the lack of attention, it was the lack of me. The root of emptiness. No one is born begging for crumbs. We learn it often too early, that to be loved we must deserve it, that affection comes as a reward, that love must be earned. And when we grow up with this belief, we start thinking we must do something to be worthy of love. You try to be perfect, the most present, the most understanding, the most available. But the more you try, the more you feel you're never enough. And little by little, you start to believe something is wrong with you, when in reality, what was wrong was the model of love you were taught. Love is not a reward. Love is presence. And true love begins when you decide to give yourself what you've always asked from others. The cycle of emotional begging, it's a cruel cycle. You feel a lack of attention. You try to get it. You do something different, send a message, make an effort to please. Sometimes it works for a while. The person responds, gives a little of what you wanted so much, but soon they pull away again. And then you feel the cold of abandonment, the fear of rejection, the weight of silence. And you try again, another message, another effort. And without noticing, you become someone who lives reacting to scraps. But no one flourishes on crumbs. And love that must be begged for is not love. It's emotional dependence disguised as affection. I know what that feels like. I know what it's like to check your phone 1,000 times, waiting for a notification. I know what it's like to ask yourself what you did wrong. I know what it's like to feel that if you just try a little harder, maybe the other person will finally see you. But love that needs constant proof becomes a prison. And the key to escape that prison is in the simple act of choosing yourself. The enough moment. No one wakes up one day and decides to beg for attention. It happens gradually. But there comes a moment when the soul shouts, enough. Enough of shrinking to fit into the little the other offers. Enough of blaming yourself for not being enough. Enough of giving love, expecting return, and being disappointed every time. This enough doesn't come with anger. It comes with fatigue, a calm fatigue that whispers, I can't keep losing myself to be seen. And that's when healing begins. Because when you stop begging for attention, you start looking inward. And you realize how much you've neglected yourself while trying to be a priority in someone else's life. The mirror encounter. Mirrors don't lie. They show what the soul tries to hide. And one day I really looked at myself. Not the physical reflection, but my gaze. The gaze tired from trying to be enough. There, I understood something that changed everything. The love I wanted from others was actually the love I needed to give myself. And it was in that moment that silence stopped being absence and became refuge. I started listening to my own voice, and it said, "You've tried to please the world in every way. Now try pleasing yourself." The path to rebuilding. Rebuilding self-love isn't about becoming a fortress. It's about returning home, inside yourself. It's about learning to say no without guilt. It's about stopping justifications for the unjustifiable. It's about allowing yourself to rest from the burden of always having to prove something. Gradually, you understand that love doesn't need to be loud to be real, that true attention isn't made of promises, but of presence, and that someone's absence can, in fact, be the space you needed to find yourself again. You learn that being alone isn't the same as being empty, because solitude isn't a lack of company. It's a lack of connection with yourself. When you start choosing yourself at first, it feels selfish. You say no to invitations, avoid certain conversations, distance yourself from people who drain your energy. But it's not selfish. It's self-preservation. It's learning that you also deserve to be a priority. That the love you give needs to hold the same value as the love you receive. That the love you give needs to hold the same value as the love you receive. And that those who truly want you don't make you beg for a look, a word, a response. You realize that true attention is reciprocal. And when it's not, there's nothing you can do to force it. Because love doesn't bloom where there's no willingness. Healing comes when you understand that you don't need to shrink to be loved. Deconstructing expectations. Expecting too much from others is forgetting how much you can give yourself. We create expectations and call them love. But often what we want is validation. We want someone to prove we matter because we forgot. Self-love starts when you give yourself what others didn't. When you validate yourself. When you applaud yourself even without an audience. When you learn to be your own home. Because in the end, no one comes to save us, but we can rescue ourselves. The turning point. There comes a day when pain changes its place. It stops being a wound and becomes strength. You start noticing patterns, people who always made you feel small, places where you always had to justify yourself, conversations that drained you, and you begin without guilt to step away. Not because you don't care anymore, but because you finally understood that caring too much for someone who doesn't care about you is a form of self-abandonment. The turning point comes when you realize self-love is not theory, it's practice. And that practice begins with daily choices. Choosing yourself isn't arrogance, it's emotional survival. A new way to love. After all this, something changes inside you. You stop seeking the love that ignores you and start opening up to the love that sees you. For light, reciprocal, calm connections, love that doesn't require effort to exist. You understand that you no longer need forced attention because now you live with presence. And you discover that the most beautiful love is born from balance, between giving and receiving, between staying and letting go. Letting go of what isn't yours. Not everything you want belongs to you. And sometimes what hurts isn't the end of a relationship, but the end of the illusion. The illusion that if you tried just a little harder, the other person would finally see you. But when you love yourself, you understand that you no longer need to insist on doors that won't open. Self-love teaches you to release with gratitude, not resentment, because you don't lose what was never yours. You just return what was taking up too much space in your heart. The silence that heals. There is a kind of peace that only comes when you stop running after others. When the noise of need turns into the silence of self-sufficiency. At first, that silence scares you, but soon you realize that is where your strength resides. You begin to hear your own thoughts, understand what you want, what you need, what you no longer accept, and that self-awareness sets you free because no one can manipulate you when you know who you are. The reunion. One day you wake up, look in the mirror and smile, not because someone praised you, but because you finally recognize yourself. You realize the love you were seeking outside was always inside, and the attention you begged for was, in truth, a cry for help from your own soul. And you answer that call with presence, with care, with respect, with love. Conclusion? Self-love starts here. Stop begging for attention. You don't need to plead to be seen. Who is yours sees you. Who loves you doesn't ignore you. And what is real will never make you doubt your worth. Love yourself enough to walk away from what hurts. Value yourself enough not to accept halves, and choose yourself, even when it's hard, even when your heart protests. Because self-love is not a destination, it's a journey. And every step on that path is a silent declaration that you finally understood. You are enough. You are whole. You are the love you've always sought. Stop begging for attention. Self-love starts here. A reminder from the unmasked heart for all souls tired of shrinking to fit.